Freud, who's regarded as by many as an extremist or even a pervert, even he talked about a period of latency. I mean, children are not sexual. By definition, they're in the age of innocence, an Eden time before the fall. And to inject sexuality at such a young age, I mean, here in the province of Ontario, they introduced the 6 genders. I challenge you to name which. You probably know what 6 they're talking about. And gay isn't a gender, by the way. You tell people that and they say, well, what are the 6 genders? Like that, they're teaching that. They're teaching that as young as grade 1. Why are you doing that? And it's got nothing to do with being straight or gay. It's about sexualizing young people. And why would you do that? Why would you break down normal barriers? And I think your cult analogy works. A lot of cults have a sexual purpose for the leader. And you break down norms, for example, monogamy norms. No, well, the boss of the cult gets to have sex with everyone. Well, what are these other norms that are being broken down by sexualizing children? I think that is the phrase grooming. You're breaking someone down and reforming them. Now, there can be good grooming, like you said, Mitch McConnell is grooming his successor. He's teaching them all the ways, and he's going to pass the baton to them. And it's improved. It's like a mentor and a protege. But the kind of grooming in a cult and the kind of grooming in these sex or orientation hypersexual school classes, it is designed to turn the student into an object of sexuality. I believe that.
Yeah, there are actually several purposes, and it's very important for people to realize that this is a purposed attempt to transform the views of our children in many regards. And people have been studying, when I say people, I should hesitate to use that particular word, because Marxists have been studying for over a century, going back to, for example, Wilhelm Reich wrote his book about sexual liberation, and then following, George Lukács in the Hungarian Revolution, using education to sexualize children in Hungary in 1919. And then Herbert Marcuse exploring this idea, tapping back to Freud in the 1950s in his book Eros and Civilization, and the power that comes with sexualizing a child, whether for predatory purposes or not, is actually outstanding. You can sever that child from a sense of the safe boundaries that you need to develop in a healthy fashion as a child. And so you can, in some sense, if you to borrow from the Marxist language, you can estrange a child from himself, but you can also estrange him from these anchors. And this is what cults always do, such as family and religion, and even the prevailing culture of, say, Canada or the United States, that might anchor them back and keep them from joining the cult. The cult always has the same program. The cult is always to draw people in using their vulnerability, and then to slowly give them acceptance in the cult and cause distrust and separation from people who might wake them up and keep them out of it. And so the goal is to, and with these children, is to teach them sexual themes, teach them that there are 6 genders. And when they go home and they tell their parents, I'm a, demigender, or whatever made up term that they apply, the parents say, what is that? That's not a thing. Then it's, Mom, you don't understand. So you sever from the parents. And then if they say invoke the Bible, or they invoke, culture, the longstanding Canadian or American culture, well, the kids will say, well, that's obsolete. It's different now. Those are oppressive forms that that hurt people like me, and you just don't understand, and things are different, and you got brainwashed into a bad world. And so you can actually separate a generation from their parents, from their culture, from their religion, but importantly from themselves. This is inappropriate relationships, whether sexual or emotional, with children, inappropriate boundary setting with children, and the inability to help them navigate the structures and boundaries and categories that they're forming in life in those important developmental phases, is how you induce personality disorders. It is how you actually psychologically damage a child to where they can't cope and function normally throughout the rest of their lives. Now, the people that are doing this know this, because those people become moldable, they become activists, they become inconsolable, and they'll constantly demand, more and more being taken care of. If they become narcissists as a result, then we all see what happens when you deal with narcissists. The focus is always on them. So this is a deliberate push. The predation, the sexual predation that can come along with this, I think, is in a sort of very disgusting sense a bonus for some predators who take advantage of this circumstance. But the ultimate purpose is actually political. and it's been well thought out, and it's been utilized for over 100 years in different Marxist revolutions. As a matter of fact, the Bolsheviks used it in Russia in 1917 and afterwards. And then Lenin had to turn it off because it was too powerful, too destabilizing. And then Mao made the same mistake in China, and they had to stop doing it there as well because, again, it was too powerful, it's too destabilizing, it's too destructive. And the fact that they're doing this whole hog to our children, they're socially transitioning them, they're doing so-called gender affirmative treatment and care at school, and then hide this from your parents, they tell them. Don't tell your parents. And in some states like California, they're working diligently to get kids to understand that they can get taken out of their parents' home if the parents aren't affirming. In fact, California is working on a bill now to make it legal for them to take kids from other states as LGBT sanctuaries. So the kid comes in and declares themselves a refugee for LGBT reasons, gets to San Francisco or Los Angeles or something, and a caseworker immediately makes them a ward of the state of California, and some parent in Iowa has now lost their child. And this is extraordinarily alarming, but it's also blatantly called grooming. But if you call it what it is, because you're calling it what it is, then the big social media platforms will kick you off because they, for some reason, are very invested in protecting this. And there are, I think, a number of reasons why they might do that. But ultimately, the goal is to disrupt society, to disrupt families, to disrupt and end faith, to segregate the younger generation from the older, and to segregate them from even themselves so they don't know who they are.
What you just saw was an excerpt from my nightly show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every weekday, I do a monologue. Usually it's about half an hour. Then I interview an interesting guest, and then we read my hate mail or my fan mail, whichever is more fun. It's only available behind a paywall, though. That's how we pay our bills here at Rebel News. We don't take a dime from Justin Trudeau. But the good news is it's only $8 a month, about half the price of Netflix. And in addition to my nightly show, you also get weekly shows from 4 other friends here at Rebel News. So you're getting 36 shows a month just for $8. I think it's worth it. And even if you're not quite sure, do it anyways, because we rely on viewers like you to keep us free and independent. I promise you I'll never take a dime from Trudeau. Just go to rebelnewsplus.com and click subscribe. Thanks.